I do apologize. We are joined by in his verse.
It's a tough one. 7,500 residents of 7,500 South Shore, the site of the aggressive military-style raid in September, say they've been told by a judge they have until December 12th to move out of the building. They were told this the day before Thanksgiving, and they're holding a press conference right now, actually, in part calling on you and your corporation counsel to intervene and file an emergency motion with the court to give residents more time and potentially resources to get out of the building in 10 days, in the middle of winter. Is that something your administration is aware of, and will you try to intervene? The city has an ongoing case regarding this building.
Well, look, ensuring that families in this city have access to affordable and quality housing, that is of great importance for me. It's one of my top priorities in building a safe city. And we've been working with these tenants for some time. Individuals that have CHA vouchers, we're going to help find placement for them, dignified housing. We've also been working with these tenants to support them in their rental relocation, operation. Look, our main responsibility, of course, at this point is to keep the tenants safe in the meantime. However, my administration is working overtime with the organizers of these tenants to ensure that they have a place of comfort and a place where they can afford and feel good about.
Do you support the December 12th deadline, or is that something that you think the court should extend?
Well, look, we're going to work with expediency to get these families placed. If there's an opportunity for us to, especially once we locate and find housing, if there's an opportunity to work with the court to provide maximum time for comfort and placement, of course we'll explore that.
And then you referenced this pitch from a small group of alders who say their budget proposal.
I don't know if it was a pitch. It was more like a roll.
I want to hear more about that, but it would avoid a property tax increase, avoid a corporate head tax, but by potentially doubling the garbage collection fee and including a $1.25 package delivery fee that residents and businesses would pay. Have you received a formal proposal, and are these ideas that you would support in any form in
Well, we have
budget?
not received a formal proposal from anyone at this point. We've started this process well back in April. And I guess some people are just used to cramming. Our team, we work nonstop, constantly. We consider ourselves responsible stewards of the people of this city. And so, this sort of rush cram work is something that, quite frankly, is, I believe the residents of the city of Chicago deserve more than that. But again, if you look at whatever form they actually submit it to me in, it's still $700 million short of completing a balanced budget. I think the other thing that's important to note here is that, not only does it take away the responsibility of these large corporations who just received, again, yet another benefit from the Trump administration, it takes responsibility off of them, and it places a greater burden on working people, doubling the garbage fee, but also it also assumes that the delivery fee is something that will stand up to litigation. I think it's really irresponsible to attempt to balance a budget on speculation, right? And so it's why with our SMART tax, the social media amusement responsibility tax, we know that this is going to be faced with some challenges in court. It's why we're not balancing our budget off of it, right? And so if you look at their proposal, you have one that's going to be litigated, you have another one that places responsibility on the working people, and then the other proposal removes responsibility from these big corporations who continue to experience incredible benefit from their defender-in-chief, Donald Trump. I just don't see this as a pathway forward because it leaves working people stranded. And in my proposal, we're not gonna leave working people stranded in this budget. We're gonna move forward as a city, and we're gonna do it together, but we're gonna make sure we're protecting working people in Chicago.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
I just want to clarify so that if the City Council passes a budget that increases the garbage fee by any amount, would you veto that budget?
Well, look, they're going to have to find 34 alders who can compel working people that they're going to balance the budget off of their backs. They're going to have to go do that work. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the tools that are available to me to protect the working people of Chicago. That is my sole responsibility in this moment, is to protect the people of this city. And here's the thing. We're asking corporations, 3% of them, to help us balance the budget with essentially an amount of dollars that account for about 1.6% of our overall budget. My question is, why are they working so hard to protect the people who already have their protector, which is Donald Trump? Every single community group that I've spoken with, I've been all over the city of Chicago, and you know what everyone is saying across the city? These big corporations have to put more skin in the game. That's what this budget does. It's balanced, it protects working people, it protects our investments, it moves us forward to continue to build the safest, most affordable big city in America.
I also want to ask you a non-budget question. I don't need any applause, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll just give you one of these.
Okay, I'll take it. The Chicago Board of Ethics fined former Inspector General Joe Ferguson $5,000 for disclosing the confidential report that determined that the smokestack implosion could have been prevented and a plume of dust could not have been, that if city officials had done their jobs, that plume of dust wouldn't have enveloped Little Village in April of 2020. Do you think that fine is appropriate, or do you agree with the former Inspector General who said, yep, I did it, and I'm glad I did because the people deserve to know that it could have been prevented?
Well, look, I think it's important that, people who are in position of authority and influence should maintain a certain decorum and honesty and work within the confines of the rules that have been established. Now, look, what inevitably came out was that there are better ways in which government can work within these communities, particularly communities where environmental justice has long been fought for. It's why I restored the Department of the Environment so that we have stronger mechanisms in place to ensure that we're moving in a way that maximizes community participation and transparency. As far as someone's desire to work against the confines of the law, that's a personal decision that he made. But as far as what we do as an administration, we respond to the needs and we create government entities that allow for the type of protective measures to be realized. And that's why the Department of the Environment in this budget, by the way, is moving forward in an additional phase so that we do have personnel in place to ensure that everyone gets to participate. But most importantly, we actually get to do right by the people of this city. Thank you for those questions.
Hi, Mayor.
Off topic only.
I'm going to stay on topic this time. So as you know, you have allies that are also advocating for this budget, putting out ads, social media posts. The CTU put out a social media post yesterday, tracks with previous press releases they've put out. It says, it describes your plan, and then it says the billionaire back plan would, among other things, raise your property taxes, cuts $166 million from firefighters, and doesn't want to pay pay out the lawsuits to people who've been hurt by wrongful lawsuits from CPD. As you know, there is not a plan that's been put out that would raise property taxes. And while there are aldermen who don't want to borrow for those operating costs, as far as I'm aware, no one has said they don't want to make those payments at all. Do you think the CTU is, as you said about the others, being misleading and lying about what's on the table?
Well, there are alders that have floated the idea of raising property taxes. They have. They're not coming out saying it out loud because, for whatever reason, they don't have the fortitude or the gall to actually state their position out loud. So that is something that alders have expressed. And, as far as making sure that our firefighters, get the contract that they deserve, that's in this budget. Right? We worked hard to ensure that, our first responders are well paid and compensated. And, I don't think it's off track to ensure that working people get their just due. And I think finally, Many people have longed for an education system that would be fully supported by a mayor. That's who they have in me. I was at a community function that was organized by Apostle Abercrombie on the west side, and he was distributing goods to families. I mean, long lines, and a woman chased me down. I was headed, to my vehicle, moving on to my next stop, and these folks had been in line for toiletries and food and furniture, coats, you name it. They were in line for these services. And she chased me down and she said, Mayor Johnson, what are you going to do about these public schools? And so I asked her what her name was. She told me her name. I want to know what you're going to do about these public schools. I asked her how many kids does she have. She told me how many kids she had. Once again, just what are you going to do about these schools? I said, what grade are they in? I was trying to get to know her and understand what her motivations are. Eventually, I told her, I said, we're going to release $500 million into our public schools. That's what the CTU is fighting for. And you know why they're fighting for that? It's because that's what I've been fighting for my entire professional career. There's never been a mayor in the history of Chicago that starved themselves for $500 million to go into our schools. There's never been a mayor in the history of Chicago that took arrests to make sure that our public schools have everything that they need. And you know why I did it? For that woman who chased me down and said, what are you going to do about our public schools? Not only are we going to release the largest TIF surplus in the history of Chicago back into our public schools so that mother and mothers and fathers across the city can have access to social workers and counselors and libraries and librarians and psychologists and after-school programs. We're also going to take this fight and continue this fight in Springfield.
All right, listening